Hello everyone. Uh, Welcome to the staff management webinar, Beyond Time and Attendance. I have got confirmation that you all hear me and you should be seeing the slide on the screen. Please send me a note if you don't see the slide. But I presume you're hearing me fine. Today, my name is Egert Gudmundsson. I am the solution lead for the staff management. And today I want to present to you the latest release of the solution. So the agenda today is, first of all, I'm going to have a short intro to who we are, LS Retail. I know most of you are already knowledgeable about LS Retail, but there might be some new ones, so I'll just have one slide just with a very short introduction. Then one slide on our platform, Dynamics NAV. Again, I know most of you are familiar with the platform, but just for any newbies in the audience, then I'll give you some idea about the NAV platform. Then we'll take a dive into the real agenda, the pain points we are addressing in staff management. So I'll give you some ideas what issues we are addressing. Then I'll dive into the solution, the management side of it, or the manager's dashboard, so to speak. Then after that, we'll go into the employees side of things. So it's kind of two sides of the solution there. So let's start with who are we, LS Retail. Basically, as probably most of you know, we've been working in retail with developing retail solutions and hospitality solutions for the last 20 years. I know the LS Retail name indicates retail only, but our genes are as well coming from hospitality, and we have many hospitality clients on our list of customers and users. But very importantly, we are working with our partner network, a very strong partner network in over 70 countries, and we have clients in approximately 120 countries. So we've been around for a while, and we know hospitality and retail, and hospitality, obviously. So I just want to make that clear. So if you don't have knowledge of LS Retail, please visit our website, lsretail.com. Enough said about that. So a little bit about our platform. So the solution I'm presenting today is working on the Dynamics NAV, Microsoft Dynamics NAV. And the words there on the slide are speaking for themselves, and done by the Microsoft wording exactly of what the solution is. I'm not going into any details of the platform at this point. I'll just point you to the Microsoft website. So on Microsoft.com you can get plenty of information about the Dynamics solutions, and the NAV is part of that offerings from Microsoft. LS Retail has other platforms that we support, retail and hospitality solutions, but the staff management and the solution I'm going to present today is only running on the LS Retail NAV. For newcomers to NAV, in some countries it's called Dynamics NAV. In Europe it's called NAV, and even some old-timers are referring to it as Navision. So it's all pointing to the same solution. So don't get confused if you hear those three references to the same solution. But again, plenty of information about Microsoft Dynamics Now platform, and please have a look at the Microsoft website for further information. But then let's dig into our agenda for today, what I call the pain points we are addressing. So in staff scheduling, it's quite common if you don't have a solution specifically for planning, that then people are using Excel or some kind of spreadsheet solution for the planning part, both in restaurants and in retail. So that's fine as far as that can go. Of course, there are some drawbacks related to that. Obviously, you have to kind of manually keep up with the employee information, you know, the new employees who's leaving, vacations and stuff like that. That's all manually handled. There's no real sync to actual salary cost. That's normal. People are working with average cost or something like that. Obviously, you're not getting the GL budget figures directly into your spreadsheet. You manually kind of have to deal with that. Often managers are keeping these spreadsheets or these plans on some local drives, so the manager, so there's no kind of approval workflow except maybe sending files back and forth, and maybe there's a confusion what is the latest plan if they are actually sharing their plans with management or other managers. It's difficult to detect errors in scheduling that way. You might have new managers, and if they're just working on some local spreadsheets, it's kind of hard to compare it to other locations and see if you're having kind of abnormalities in the planning. And also there's difficult to put some external factors in front of the manager, or basically you can't place information on the spreadsheet, for example weather forecast or external some external factors that might influence your planning. Since you're just having a spreadsheet, that's hard to do, but of course the managers can check the weather forecast and things like that if that's relevant to their business, for example in hospitality. But that's issues. All these issues are part of the things that we are addressing in our solution. And then if we get to time registration, of course commonly time registration is kind of standalone process if you're using a standalone solution that has no relation to planning. So obviously you don't have then automatic comparison to the plans or to the schedules, so you just kind of, quite commonly people just hope for the best, that the employees are kind of arriving and leaving according to their schedules. And the managers are supposed to manually then compare it and make sure it's according to schedules, but frankly it's quite common they don't, if they're that busy that they just simply don't have the time to do it. So these would be pain points in scheduling and time registration. If we get to other pain points, employees flexibility. We all want to give the employees full flexibility in when they work, and in both retail and hospitality this is normally quite important to the employee. For example, in hospitality commonly you have students working extra. As extras, you have people that are even you having this as their second job and stuff like that. So flexibility is important, and so a number of employees would like to have flexibility in planning their shifts, but flexibility, even though we would like to give it to all employees, that can be quite handful to manage, and managers kind of get drowned in phone calls, emails, SMSs, and kind of requests for shift exchanges or shift changes. So flexibility can be expensive in the way time consuming, but this is something we are addressing in our solution. So you can give the employee full flexibility with the minimum load on the management side of it. And finally, analyzing all this, comparing actual hours to plans and budgets. Of course, if these are all separate solutions and you have to move data back and forth between solutions, that is normally that hard to do, let's say for a restaurant manager or a store manager. They are normally not IT people, and their expertise is in other areas. So I think in my opinion, it's really important to just have all these comparisons and analysis put in front of the managers, and they will start to use it. So these are kind of the pain points we are addressing, and then let's get to the next part of our agenda. That's basically digging into the solution. So I'll be showing some screenshots from the latest release, and I will be going in quite a detail into these screenshots to tell you what's going on the screen and to give you a good idea of the power of the solution. So first, about the management side of things, so what's and how the solution is operating. So obviously we need employees, and we need to define roles, and then we define who can do what and when. So basically their availability, and of course you can put in vacations and known sick leaves and stuff like that. Of course, then at planning you can have reference to skill levels, so you can make sure you don't put just all new people on the same shifts. And then you can have exact cost or calculated based on salary setups, or based on a link to a salary solution, or sync with internal salary solution. Or you can run on average cost if you don't want to go down to exact cost. Role budgets, that's a very important part, and I'll go in quite detail into the role budgets, which are kind of reference of how many people you need for the normal shift per weekday and per location, per shift. And this is reference for the planning. I will go into detail of the role budgets, which is kind of core idea of the solution. And obviously we have then the roster planning, the planning part, and that's where we assign people to shifts. When do we need them? And of course people can be assigned to fixed shifts, so you might have people that are just working on fixed shifts, and you can have them also on shift patterns, and then the solution automatically rolls out the shift assignment when you create the plan. And in the roster you have then estimate of the total hours and cost, and you can compare it to your budget. So this is kind of the core idea and the solution. And then of course you can't go far without employees. So I'm going to give you an idea of the settings on the employee card. So for each employee, you can assign the employee to a planning region, and that means that employee can be assigned on locations within that region, or you can assign them to one single location, work location, or they can have multiple work locations. Then you assign something we call work arrangement on the employee. That basically tells the system how many hours they should normally be working per week or per month, and then that also decides basically the logic, or the how the solution is calculating the time registration and converting it to salary hours, which are then later sent to the salary system. So work arrangement is kind of key, or the heart of the solution, heart of the settings there on the employee. Then you have time entry ID, that's the ID used for time registration. The salary ID, which is the ID which is sent to the salary system if it's different than the time entry ID. Then you have default shift or shift patterns that this employee is assigned to if they're not manually assigned. Then you set a preferred role or multiple roles, so employee can cope with more than one role. Then you can assign average cost on employee level or at the work code level. Basically, you can define average cost for normal hours or overtime, for example. Or you can define that you're going to use exact salary, and we have maybe a link to the to your salary solution if it's running within NAV. And then from this card you can, for example, set up on availability, for example, vacations, known sick leaves, and kind of preferences regarding assignments. So if they don't want to work on Saturdays for some reason, you can define those settings, and that's used as a reference when you do the planning. So enough about the employee. Then we can go to the role budgets, which I mentioned earlier. So basically you define how many people you need for each role, for each day of the week, for each shift. So this is kind of the general rule or the base resource need you have at the location. Obviously, you might have different needs for different days. So you can, for example, in US, you might have more employees working at your restaurant on 4th of July or less. So you might set up adjustment on specific dates. So that would be manual adjustments to the role budgets. But there is a nice feature that you can have these budgets adjusted automatically by the solution based on external or internal factors. For example, you could link to your role budget the number of cashiers, for example, based on a sales forecast, which you might be pulling in from somewhere else from NAV. Or you can be adjusting the number of receiving desk workers based on the information in the purchasing module. You could be also, for example, based on promotions in the sales part, be increasing number of people, increase the number of people you need to work at certain days because of promotions going on. So hopefully that would give you then fine-tuning of how many people you need at any given day. Also, we have integration to weather forecast, so you can actually have weather forecast adjusting the role budgets. I'll go a little bit further into that later. I was just getting a message from GoToMeeting that the sound quality is not perfect. I hope you still hear me. I'll keep going. Then the next thing, the role center. So the role center is basically the dashboard for the manager, where they have access to all the latest information from the solution, and we are using what we call the queues, the queue buttons here on the role center to show what's going on. So the first three queues here are basically the status of the salary entry conversion, basically the status of the time registration converted to salary hours. So when we start to get the time registration through, it's converted to salary hours, and if it's all according to plan or to the schedule, then the solution is automatically approving or accepting the hours. But if it's not, then for some reason somebody is didn't show up to work, or they are not according to plan, we will see those popping up here in the queue as open entries, and the manager can manually deal with those. Then you have the shift exchanges. So if employees are requesting shift exchanges, you can see the number of shift exchanges, and you can just click on the queue to see the list and accept the exchanges or reject them. Then we have the budget adjustment here. That's there basically the solution is telling you, okay, we have a change to the role budgets due to some external factors. So there you can actually take a look and see what the system is suggesting. And then finally we have a warning mechanism, which is completely dynamically set up. Basically you can tell a solution to warn you for given circumstances. For example, if employees is going into overtime, or both based on the plans or based on the actual hours. So that's completely dynamically set up at which point you want these warnings to kick in. So if you take a quick look what's on the role center, so we have the day shift here in the middle. This is just for current day, the people that are assigned to work and their status, when their scheduled time is, how many hours they're scheduled, and then the hour registration start to kick in and is shown here in the list. On the lower part here in the day summary, you get the same employees obviously, and how many hours they've been working in the month, the current week, and then broken into the work codes, and here in this case normal hours and the overtime. Then you have the list of your work location, which you have access to, and then you can switch between those work locations by changing location here. And then you have a list of all your employees. So you can, for example, if you need someone suddenly because somebody doesn't show up, you have the list here, and you can just click on the phone number if you have a phone number, and it would just Skype call the employee. And finally, here in the lower part of the screen, we have the graph showing actual versus budget. So we're analyzing is already here put in front of the manager. Basically, here we have a graph comparing the actual hours to the budget, to the plan or the budget. So they can have an instant idea what's going on regarding to keeping up with the plan, with the budget. Enough said about the role center. I think this gives you a good idea what's going on in the role center. So let's dig into the planning or the scheduling part. So the scheduling view is quite looks similar to a spreadsheet or Excel sheet, but it's more focused on what it's supposed to be doing. So it's gonna give you a lot more information than an Excel spreadsheet can do. So and also from here you can have access to all related information, the employee unavailability or availability, all their statistics and history, and external factors, which I will show you how is presented on this page. So I'll just expand the screen a little bit so you hopefully have a good clear view of the screen, and I'll just give you an idea what's going on here. So here on the left side we have a list of the employees for this work location, and they are assigned here in the middle of the matrix. You see the days and their assignments. So these CDs or MDs, these are what we call short codes, and in this case CD would stand for cashier on a day shift. When I'm assigning people manually, I can use this short code to just enter in the cell, or I can just enter the hours like I'm doing here, and then it just picks up the default role of the employee and assigns them to work. So I can either, like I said, enter the hours or just enter the shortcut. I can also click on the cell and I can get a list of options. For example, it will lead me to select the shift and the role that's available for that particular employee and assign them to the shift. So So upper part is all related information to the employees, and then you have the lower part or the total section. So the lower part is showing, in this case, the role budgets. So the role budget is showing me the first letter here, in this case 4/3. 4 means that I have assigned 4 cashiers that day, but only 3 are actually required. So so I can see here how I'm doing assigning versus how many are supposed to be working. Also, but this total section and also the matrix section can be changed here, what it's actually being displayed. So I can display various information in the matrix, for example, just the shifts or the roles or the hours. There's a number of options here what to have display, as well as with the total part we can also see the total cost, the total numbers, etc. So quite flexible in what you see here. And also, if you notice here, we have weather forecast here. So we can add external lines here. In this case, I have a weather forecast. It's actually is talking to a web service and can be pulling in all types of weather info. For example, if it's going to be rain or temperature. I have a steady good temperature here. And then I can also see if the weather forecast is going to affect the role budget. So I can then manually decide if I take notice of that that role budget adjustment. But any kind of information, for example, how many sales promotions are going on for a certain day, it can be just added to this total section, which is quite a powerful feature. Here on the lower section, we have the totals for the same employees, months, and split it on the week numbers or the weeks. In the right upper corner, we have the total summary in hours, the schedule, the budget, and the actuals, and then the amounts as well. And then we have what we call the employee totals. So this is based on the employee I've selected here on the screen, and on the date I've selected, and it would give you a summary of hours. What is summarized here is completely dynamically set up. It's called work history setup, and basically we can have any kind of summary of the salary entries, hour entries, and the plan entries, and we can see the actuals here when we get the actuals, and the plant as well, and we can actually drill down to those entries from here. So this should give you a pretty good idea what's going on in the planning. Just to mention some things regarding planning, we support both monthly and weekly planning, so you have all the summaries on weekly basis as well as monthly basis. We have possibilities of multiple shifts per employee, so an employee can be working more than one shift per day and more than one role per day. We can see marking of special days, so if you have public holidays, vacations, etc., we can see those in the matrix. We can compare to the role budget or the GL budget, and the solution is locking all changes we do. So if we have a plan, we have confirmed it, we do any changes, the system is going to lock those changes, and you can track those, have a view on track those changes. From here we can also do some what we call vacancy requests. Basically we can click on the total section here. If we need a cashier at that shift, or we need a manager for that shift, we just click here and we can make a request. It would show me all the employees that are valid for that role and are available that day, and you can send them SMS, emails, or request, and they can accept or reject them at the clock in or through the employee portal. So quite nice feature if you just simply need to send a request for someone to work at a certain day. And finally, you can publish all this as a report or send it as emails to the employees. So yeah, I heard somebody told me that sound was cut out briefly. Thank you, Ron. I hope it's okay still now, and you didn't lose all the wisdom I was I was giving out there. But let's continue to the analyzing part. So analyzing, again, I think it's, we have really nice possibilities to compare and summarize all these values, and I think it's important that of course you can do all this in BI tools and stuff like that, but to have it there in front of the managers without any further doing, that's quite nice feature. And just I'll give you an idea of the analysis. So we have the hour analysis for per day, for example, here, and the planned figures. So I can see by graph how I'm covering the day. So the blue line here is the assignments and the red line is the budget. So I have an hour here missing. I can, by the pie chart, I can see if some hour of the day is much bigger than others. That would indicate some mistake in planning or some cost or issue or problems in setting cost setup. So that would show me if there's something abnormal going on during the day. I can see the shift employees for that particular day, and then I can see the distribution of those employees per hour, or actually I can control the interval here. We can see this this on 5 minutes intervals or up to 2-hour intervals, like I'm showing it here. So then I can see the coverage per hour or per interval based on the work roles. So just to see, I have 3 cashiers working from 10 to 11, for example. So this should give you pretty good coverage of the day, and from here I can adjust the plan. And note, I'm not fixed on shifts. You can actually modify the assignments down to hours or minutes, so you don't fixate it on certain shifts, so to speak. Then we can analyze the roster. So we can have it analyzed per day or the whole month or on per week, and we can summarize this and get the distribution of the cost or the number of hours on the work codes or the shifts or on the roles, and we can get the cost percentage of our cost index, so to speak, versus sales. I have the comparison of plan actuals here, and then based on what line I've selected here in this area, it will show me the same information, either graphed by date or graphed by the group I'm actually looking at. So you have kind of a mini BI tool here on your fact box here. So enough about the analyzing part. So on the roster, that was just the analyzing on the roster itself. We have some other analysis as well. So I will go into that a little bit later on. So time registration, obviously we need the hours coming in so we can get the actual hours and do the comparison with the plan. So we have our own clock in, clock out feature, which can be running on the POS, or it can be running on a dedicated client or dedicated clock, so to speak. So on this page, the employee can either swipe their employee card, they can enter their ID, and we have also integrated biometrics for a number of clients. So have either eye scanner or fingerprint scanner to identify the employee. So for the basic functionality, obviously the arrival and departure of the employee, but it's also kind of communication center for the employee. So the employee, we can have functionality for the employee on this screen, so they can make shift requests. They have functions. They can view the roster or the plans up front. They can view the shifts who are going to be working with them on the shift. They can view their hour registration, and they can view the salary entries, basically the salary hours that are going to be exported to the salary solution. So they can kind of quality control the salary hours. So you have at least their comments on the hours before it's sent off to the salary system. But just to note, I'm getting some questions on the question panel. Just to make sure, I'll be answering the questions after this session. So bear with me for a while. Just note, it's fine to get the questions there, but I won't address them until later. So basically we can add functionality to this clock environment, if I refer to the classic clock in, clock out. But we also have an employee portal where the employee can do all the same things. I will get back to that. So when we get the time registration, the hours starts to kick in, and the solution will be automatically accepting or rejecting them based on the schedule. But then if there are hours that the manager needs to deal with, they can go into this page, they can filter this, and they can see all the entries that they have to deal with, and they can either accept or reject. And at that point, they have all the information they need. They can also see the statistics of the employee. Is it an employee that's always arriving early and is only arriving late once? So maybe I just accept this that he was late and still pay him for the time, for example. So from here they can modify the entries as well, and they can create manual entries. For example, if you have some additional let's say expenses or even tips that you want to register, and it's going to be passed to the salary module. Then a little bit mentioned before, all these dynamic warnings and calculations, basically the summary part. So this is the setup of how you can calculate the hours, both in the plan and in the actuals. So I can define if it's summarizing total hours or number of times or number of days. I can then tell the system I want a warning if it goes over certain comparison value. I can define the period it's going to be summarizing. It could be a week or next week, last week, last 3 weeks, whatever part of what period you want to calculate. You can define certain work code if you only want to calculate overtime, for example. And then this is then placed for example, in various locations in the solutions. For example, I can view this information on the employee totals, both on the employee card and on the roster card, or you can have this displayed on the employee portal. So this is quite a powerful feature. And then finally, when all the hours have been accepted or rejected, then you can export it to a salary system. So this is not a salary solution as such. We have estimate of the cost at the planning stage. We have got a good estimate of the cost, but in the end, it's the actual salary solution that takes care of making it into salary. So we are passing the hours to the salary solution. And you might have an external salary solution quite commonly, then we can export this as files to the external solution, or you might have a Dynamics NAV solution, and that gives us much better opportunity to really integrate to that solution. So we can get the salary cost basically from the salary solution live, and the employee data live as well. So but we can work with external solutions by exporting this information. I have to speed up a little bit. I only have 15 minutes, so we still have the employee portal, which is a very nice part of the solution. But just to give you a quick note, we have vacation planning, so you can have a summary of the vacation days. You can also use this for planning other events, for example, training, and you can kind of have total view or number of years, so you can see, okay, this is an employee, he always gets vacation on Christmas, so maybe this Christmas he has to work. So things like that. So it gives you a pretty good view over a number of years. Enough said about that. Analyzing, I mentioned the roster analyzing. We have the same analysis kind of on a total level. So you can have week summarizes of all these, of the salary cost based on work codes, shifts, roles, employees, and down distributed on the weeks. You can have the graphic section exactly like in the roster analysis, and you can compare here to actuals versus budget or plan. And the same thing goes with monthly basis. and you can drill down to these values, and you can have also comparison between locations. So we have also analysis that compares number of locations. So I only have 50 minutes for the employee portal, so the employee side of things. So what is the employee portal? That's a tool for the employee to request days to work or shifts, or to request days off. This can be running on a mobile client, not mobile client. So it can be running on a mobile phone, it can be running on a tablet, and the employee can there make these requests, and they can also see the status of their requests. So they see their open work request, that's request they've made to the manager. They can see their accepted ones, which the rejected ones. They can make the same thing for the day off requests, and then they can see and if they have any shift exchange requests from other employees, and they can have work requests from the managers to specifically work on a certain date. So they have a quick live overview of any requests going on and what's the status on those. And they can get messages from the manager through here, and if we go further on, they can just by basically flipping through, selecting these options here, or just sliding the screen, they get to the other options. So the employee request is a very simple page. It's pre-populated with the location and the role from the employee. They can select the date and shift, and they can change the hours if they need to work shorter or different hours than the actual shift states. So these would be the request either for working or taking a day off. They can see their schedule, so they can see their shifts, their planned shifts. They can click on that line and they can see who are working that same shift, and they can also click on it and select that they're requesting a day off. Then they can see their salary hours, so all accepted salary hours would pop up here, and they can actually also comment on the entries, which will pop up at the manager's role center. Then we have summary of hours. It's using this work history mechanism which I showed you earlier. So it's completely dynamic what you see here and what's being summarized. But the employee, you can have special section of things that are relevant to the employee. For example, how many weekends they're going to work next month and stuff like that. So they can see their actual hours and what is planned for them. Completely dynamically set up. Then they can review their details, so they can see their work arrangement, their role. They can upload their picture and see that all their details are correct. Then that was the employee portal. That was the part that's normally operated on the mobile phone. But what happens in the back end? What happens on the role center? So I'm gonna go a little bit through that. So basically all requests from the portal from employees is popping up in this queue here called requests. So here any request for a day to work or shift to work or day off would pop up in this queue here. So simply by clicking on the queue, the manager would get list of those requests. And from here they can have, they will see each line, they see the employee related to that request, they see the summary figures, so they can see the status of the hours. They can open the roster from here, they can open the day analysis from here, and they can either accept or reject. So if they accept, the employees either assigned to the shift if it's a request for work, or they are taken off the shift if it's a request for a day off. So it's very controlled, nice environment to deal with all these requests and in a structured format. In the roster as well, they will see all requests. So if I view the plans or the schedules, you will see the assignments, you will see these plus minus signs here in front of the assignment. plus means that the employee made a request for that day, or if it's a minus, then it's the employee made a request not to work that day. So you can have a quick view to see all the requests in the planning, on the planning page. And you can convert them here to assignment or a day off as well. So bottom line, overall the benefits, I think hopefully convinced you the benefits for the employees are quite obvious. They have a really simple and easy access to all their information, to all their shifts and making requests. For the managers, it's heaven. They get all these requests just in a single format, so to speak, to the role center. So it's not emails, SMSs, and all the hassle to deal with that. So I think the employees and the managers would be pretty happy with the portal features. And overall, I think I should have convinced you that all this will lead to accurate, better, and easier planning. And that's the whole point of this. And obviously we'll get accurate salary hours, so you have the hours correct before it's sent to the salary solution, which is going to minimize all the after work of correcting those by the salary department. And finally, I think you will agree that you have pretty good statistics and analysis of all these comparisons between plans and budgets. And also it's a big thing that you can have access to all the external factors that affect the planning. And our latest addition to that, the weather forecast integration, I think it's amazing way for example, restaurants to make sure they take notice of weather forecasts in their planning. So who should be using it? Of course, everybody should be using it, but we think it's really perfect for retail stores and warehouses, where we can pull in all these internal information in NAV and affect the role budgets. For restaurants, it's obviously perfect regarding weather forecast and stuff like that, as well as for hotels and resorts. Hotels and resorts are actually nice, pretty nice prospects for this, because you have so much information up front in that kind of business. You have the occupation, reservations, you have all the appointments up front, like in spa and golf. So you can really use that information to adjust your plans. So this is about all I have to show you today. So please feel free to throw me some questions. I'll try to answer most of them. If I don't manage to answer your question, don't worry. We will collect all the questions, and we will send out the answers and put it out on the partner portal. So don't worry if I don't manage to answer you immediately today. So please confirm and please give me some questions. Okay, I've got some questions here. Let me see. First question here. Does the time register allow to register time and log into POS with one login? I have to take a rain check on that answer, because it's more on the POS side of things, and I think something has been done to do that. So I'll just get back to you on that. If it's not there, it's pretty easy to do, but I'll make sure I get you the correct information from the POS side of things. The staff management is kind of my expertise, and I don't want to answer for something I'm not 100% sure of. So the next one, can you make an employee unavailable for a portion of the day? Yes, you can. Yes, they can't work lunch but can work dinner. How? Yeah, you can. It will be marked as you can get a comment. Basically, when you enter these preferences, you can set a comment, and you set up the time that they're not available, not just the shift. So you can play with that. Can you schedule employees for split shifts, lunch and dinner? Basically, you can create shifts that have breaks, and you can have the breaks excluded or deducted from the hours. that's a setup on the shift. So if that's will answer your question, but you can also have have multiple assignments per day. You can assign someone on morning shift and afternoon shift, for example. Can you declare tips at the clock? Out of the box, we don't have that feature, but I actually did that for one client, Boyne Resorts in the US, and we will probably bring that into the standard solution. So we actually have the possibility to manually enter entries that are going to be passed to the salary solution, but we didn't have that possibility at the clock, but we can easily put an input for that on the clock side. Question here, some customers do not have access to partner portal, so okay, this is Eloise, sorry, that's not a question. Let me see. More questions. Can you first read the question and Eloise, I think I do that. Let me see. The screens. Let me see. Yeah. We already have an HCM solution, and we'll look to import our data through an API to enable better reporting from NAV within NAV. What part of the LS NAV handles the import of workforce management data? Ariel, I think I have to get back to you on answering that question. Does the system do automatic lunch break deductions? Yes, you can define the shifts that they have automatically the breaks deducted. Is there training material available? Yes, there is a quick setup guide, and there's a demo. There's a demo setup or demo database, but exact training material. But normally I would use the quick setup for the training material. But probably we'll get back to you on that one as well. When you enter hours manually into the schedule, does the time frame have to follow a shift, or can it be any hours? It can be any hours, but the system will decide if it belongs to a certain shift. So if you enter hours that are within the time frame of a shift, for example a day shift, then the time would be assigned to that shift, but you could have different time than the actual shift has. Is the employee portal only an app, or is it there a web portal? It is. It's not. It's actually a NAV client. It's the NAV mobile client, and it's the NAV web portal. Yes. So the answer would be yes. It's a web. You can also have it as a web portal. Yeah. Another question related to that is there. So I think I answered that one. Can employee click in and out of a break? Yes, that's there's a setting that you can define that you need to clock in and out to breaks. Yeah, and I will make answer these questions in writing and put it on our portal, and there I might give you a little bit more details of what settings are related to that particular issue. Any more questions? I think there are no more questions popping up, so I think we're good for now. Thank you all for attending. I hope it gave you a good idea about the solution, and that concludes our session today. Thank you guys. I will end the webinar now. Thank you.